Good morning, students. Welcome back to Programming for Problem Solving class, PPS class. In our previous session, we discussed about arrays. So we defined an array as a collection. First of all, we defined an array as a collection. We said it is a collection of same data type elements. So to understand this one, we said we have different types in C language, like we have integers, characters, float, double, boolean. Okay, we discussed all these types in our first unit. Okay, so when you declare a variable, a normal variable, we said we can store only one data element into that one, only one value into that one. But if you want more number of variables, the problem of names will uh, come into existence. That is, we need to remember, suppose if you are maintaining 10 variables, you need to remember 10 names. If you want to maintain 50 variables, then you need to remember 50 names. Likewise, there is a naming problem, we can say. There is a I mean we have to remember more number of names, and we have to know what variable is holding what type of value. Likewise, there will be a confusion in our programming. So to avoid this confusion, what we said, we are going for arrays. So array is nothing but we can keep more number of variables under one common name, isn't it? So we said simply an array is a group of element. It is a collection of elements, isn't it? It is a collection of homogeneous type of elements. Yani you can keep all variables into your array of same type. Okay, we cannot have mixed type of data elements. We can have only same type of data elements, that is homogeneous type of data elements into our arrays. So arrays, we said they are of two types. The first one, 1D array, that is one dimensional array, and the second one is 2D array, two dimensional array. There is another category in our programming languages. We have like multi-dimensional array, that we will not discuss in your syllabus, but as you can see over here, if you go to your syllabus, they are talking about only 1D and 2D arrays. They're not talking about the multi-dimensional or three-dimensional arrays in our syllabus. So we will discuss up to 1D and 2D only. We will not go for 3D arrays, three-dimensional arrays. Hopefully you understood this one. In our previous class itself, we discussed about one-dimensional arrays into details. So we said we're gonna have all the elements in only unidirectional, okay, like a series, okay, like in linear fashion. So one after the other, all elements we are going to have in linear fashion. So after that, we discussed a linear fashion in the sense in this way, like consecutive, one after the other. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5, like this, all elements. So this is one variable, this is another variable. Like we are going to have group of variables, a collection of variables. How many elements over here? 5 elements. Okay, so we need to declare array of size 5, isn't it? So this declaration, definition, and initialization, like every other entity, like every other programming construct in our C language, we need to do declaration, definition, and initialization of arrays as well. So for declaring this size 5 array, what we have to do, we have to give the variable identifier, that is array identifier. Again, this array, it needs a name, isn't it? So name, let us say if we are giving a, then how to specify 5 elements? Simply take the uh, square brackets and put the subscript like 5. Okay, so this will give you an array of size 5. Now after that, what type? So definitely there is a type declaration also we need to do. That type specification, we call it as definition. So if you need integer variables, simply make them as integers. Int a of 5. Now this array a will store 5 elements of type integer. You can even declare the character type of array. That is very simple. So simply make character a of 5. Character a of 5. So now this a of 5 will hold all character elements. Here it will hold integer elements, here it will hold character elements. Likewise, we need to remember the array. Then after that, I have also shown the initialization part, that how we can put the values into an array. We have discussed different ways in which we can put the values into array. The basic initialization techniques. First of all, four different types of techniques: basic initialization, partial initialization, initializing array without size, and initializing all elements to zeros. These four initialization mechanisms we discussed over here, this ones. Okay, then we can also said we can even initialize the individual elements of the array. So that we can do with the help of a for loop. There, using a scanf statement, we can read the elements from the keyboard, and if you want to print the elements on the console, we can make use of the for loop followed by a printf statement to print all the elements on the console. All these things, input and output values, that we said, inputting values using scanf, outputting values using printf. Okay, printing values using printf. But assigning values, if you have one array with some elements, and if you want to assign all the elements from that array to another array, directly you can't do, isn't it? So that also I explained. With the help of for loop only, we have to initialize every individual element of the array to some other array, isn't it? So simply in one shot we can't do. We have to depend on multiple initializations. Okay, or we can say all elements we have to initialize to some other array. Okay, like this we have to do basically inside of our loop, where scores is holding the elements, and temp is holding the elements, and scores will be initialized with all the elements of temp array. Here two arrays we are maintaining. Scores is one array, temp is another array. So whatever elements we are going to have inside temp, all those elements will be initialized to scores in that way. Then index range checking we discussed. We said index range checking, we have to do it manually. Okay, the compiler, it will not check the index. Rather, what it will do, it will give issue. It will not give any issue if you cross the index, but you will get uh, unexpected output, or inaccurate, improper output after the program execution. So checking the index range. Index range checking means if you are declaring 5 elements into the array and you are accessing the 6th element, isn't it? You have declared only 5 elements and you are accessing the 6th element. So what you are doing, what mistake you are doing over there, you are trying to access something which is not defined in your program. So if you do so, what will happen? You will get garbage values, you will get unknown values, unexpected, unpredicted values in your program. So you must have to maintain the index, you must have to know the barrier, or you must have to know the boundary of your array, where exactly the array is ending and where you have to stop the reading process. So if you cross the array, what will happen? Definitely you will get unpredicted values. Hopefully you understood this concept. And this index range checking, it is completely manual. Okay, remember it as it is completely manual in the sense, we as the programmers, we have to do something in order to maintain the boundary of the array, in order to maintain that condition, that we should not cross the boundary. Okay, so failing which we will get unexpected results. Okay, hopefully you understood. So the next thing, we have to go for two-dimensional arrays. So two-dimensional arrays are something, they are we should not say it is non-linear. They are also organized linearly, but in two directions. Okay, they will be organized in two dimensions. One is in x dimension and the other one is in y dimension, we can say. Hopefully if you are good in mathematics, if you have done planes concept in mathematics, then you might have known these things. Okay, so rows as well as columns. When I'm saying x direction, it is nothing but the rows, and when I'm saying y direction, it is nothing but columns, isn't it? So in x direction as well as in y directions, we are going to have the elements organized in your two-dimension arrays. So when you are maintaining the elements in two dimensions, definitely you need to have the indexes, one for each dimension. So here we are going to have two indexes, one for x dimension and the other one is for y dimension. And how the elements will be stored in the sense like a matrix. In your mathematics, how we are maintaining the matrix, in that way we will maintain the elements in your two-dimensional array. Both in rows as well as in columns we are going to have the elements. And to access every individual element from your two-dimensional array, we need to maintain, or we need to give the uh, index of both row as well as column. So I will show you, simply I will show you how it will be. I will take an example of an two-dimensional array, 2D array of size 3, 2. So how we give size 3, 2? In this way. First you give the array name, that is array name I am giving A. Okay, A of 3. 3 in the sense, first dimension we are giving 3 and the second dimension I am giving 2. So what does it mean when I am giving like this? So first dimension, it always represents the number of rows present inside your two-dimensional array. And the second dimension, it always represents the number of columns present inside your array. And this A is nothing but the array name. Okay, this is your array name. And what else we are missing over here is the type specification. Suppose for our simplicity, for our easy understanding, I'm maintaining the type always as integer. Okay, it doesn't mean that you have to use integer only always. We can go with character, float, double, whatever the type of your interest, you can go with that. Okay, but integer, it is very easy to understand, so I'm taking integer only because we are in practice. Uh, we are practicing something over here rather than doing research, isn't it? So at the practice level, it is better to go with all simple stuff. Okay, so integer, so this is the type specification, or we can say the definition. Okay, type specification. So like this you can remember all the things whatever we have done over here. Okay, so when you do like this, how the memory will be organized for this array to store? Okay, A of 3, 2, when you are saying how the memory will be organized, in the sense it will take 3 rows and 2 columns. So simply take a box kind of thing, because it is a two-dimensional array, so it is going to have elements in both dimensions, so rows as well as columns. So how many rows? 3 rows we set. So take 3 rows over here, the first row, second row and third row. Okay, then how many columns? 2 columns. So first column and second column. So in this way all the elements will be stored in my 2D array. So here one element, here one element, here one, here one, here one, here one. Total how many elements? 6 elements. So simply multiply the number of rows with number of columns to get the count of elements. How many elements? What is the size of this array? If somebody will ask, so you have to say we can store 6 elements into this array. So how many? 6 elements. 3 rows, 2 columns. So total 6 elements we can store into this array. So as we know, as we are aware that in case of one-dimensional arrays, we said every time in order to access a single element from your array, we need to depend on index. So here how the index will go? So index will have both for rows as well as for columns. Already I told you this thing. So for rows, again the index will start from 0 only always. So for rows, how much is the index? We have 3 as the index, isn't it? So for rows it will start like this. First 0th row, first row and second row. So always the index will start from 0 and ends at maximum size minus 1. So what is the maximum size of my rows? 3. So here where it is starting at 0 and ending at maximum size minus 1, that is 3 minus 1, 2. So likewise, then give the index for columns. So start with 0 and 1. So what is my maximum size for columns? 2. And where it is starting at 0 and ending at 1. So like this. So now how we can access every element, each element from this two-dimensional array, in the sense we need to use the row index first and then the column index. Okay, so first, what is the row index? Is suppose if I want to access this first box, okay, first memory location from my 2D array. So what will be the index of this first memory location is, first you take the index of rows, that is 0, and then you take the index of columns, that is 0. So 0 0 is the index value in order to access this element, this particular element. Hope it is visible to you. Then how we can access this box? This is 0th row and first column, 0 1. In order to access this one, we need to pass the index as 0 row and 1 column. So for accessing this one, 1 0, okay, first row and 0th column. This one, first row, first column. This one, second row, for 0th column. This is second row, first column. Like this, we can access all the elements from this two-dimensional array. So I will give you more clarity over here how we can pass in order to access this first box. What we need to put? A of 0th row and 0th index. Like this we need to put. So in order to access this one, okay, A of 0th row and first column, like this. So for this to access first row and 0th column, so A of first row and 0th column. So to access this one, A of second row and 0th column. So for this to access, A of first row, first column, A of first row, first column. This is to access A of second row and first column. So like this, you can access all the elements from your array. So two-dimensional array of size 3 rows, 2 columns, we have shown how the memory will be organized and how you can access every individual element from this two-dimensional array, how the index will be given, and how you can access every individual element I have shown over here. Okay, it will be like a matrix. Okay, so now the declaration we have seen, giving name and specifying size, and definition we have seen how we can do the type specification. Then now we have to see how we can do the initialization for this array. Okay, so here that everything we have shown again. So this is an array of 4 by 4. This is an array of 4 by 4, because how many rows we have? 4 rows we have and 4 columns we have, and index is starting at 0 and ending at 3. Here also index is starting at 0 and ending at 3. So suppose if the array name is A and the type is int, how we can access individual element? This to access, we need to go for 0 0. This is 0 1. This is 0 2. This is 0 3. 0th row, 0th column, 0th row, first column, 0th row, second column, 0th row, third column. Likewise, this is 1 0, 1 1, 1 2, 1 3. This is 2 0, 2 1, 2 2, 2 3. This is 2 3 0, 3 1, 3 2, 3 3. This is just the index, not the actual value. I'm giving the index over here, how you can access every element. So suppose if you want to do the initialization for this array, how we can do that? We will do declaration I have shown, definition I have shown. Okay, so here you can read, declaration tells the compiler the name of the array. Declaration tells the compiler the name of the array. Definition specifies the type and size of each dimension. Okay, definition specifies type and size of each dimension. Okay, declaration, what it will do? It will only give the name. So here we are giving the name. This comes under the declaration. And definition, what it will do? It will specify not only the type but also the size for every dimension. Okay, rows as well as columns we have. So size for every dimension. Who will do this one? The definition will do you. Type declaration, then size specification, we can say. Size specification of each dimension, we can say. Okay, so what is missing now? Declaration we are good at, and definition we are good at. We are missing with the initialization that we need to do. So initialization, again, there are different ways in which we can initialize the array elements. So you can initialize the individual element, okay, simply by taking the size. You can initialize the index. You can initialize the each and every element inside your array. That is the first or the simplest approach, we can say. Okay, then the next thing, with the help of passing the values, you like a set. Okay, we can even initialize the elements by passing the values like a set. Okay, the definition of a two-dimensional array only reserves the memory for the elements in the array. No values will be stored in the locations. The locations will be generally contain unpredictable values or garbage values. So if you don't do the initialization, what will happen with your array elements? They will hold the garbage values or uninitialized values. Okay, unpredicted values, we can say. Okay, so always before using the array elements, what we have to do, we need to do the initialization to avoid the unpredicted output or garbage value output. Hopefully you remember this one. So initialization of an array can be done when the array is defined. Okay, we can do at the time of initialization also. Here, how many elements we said when you are creating an array of 3 rows and 2 columns? How many elements? Simply multiply the rows with columns, so to get the total count. So how many elements? 6 elements. So what you have to do, simply put like this, you pass 6 elements. So now what will happen? This first element will become 0 0, this will become 0 1, this will become 1 0, 1 1, 2 0, 2 1. Likewise, 3 rows 3 columns, it will take 3 rows 2 columns, it will take in that way. So I will show you over here how that allocation will be done. So first row, second row and third row, first column and second column. So this 2 first element will go over here, then 3, then 5, 4, 6, 9, like this. Okay, more precisely, you can even do the initialization by taking nested sets. So the first row, you can take another set and you can simply put like this will become your first row. Okay, or 0th row, we can say. This will become your first row, sorry, first index row, I mean the second row. This will become your third index row, oh, sorry, second index row or third row, we can say. Okay, so like this we will get all the elements: 2 3 in the first row, 4 6 in the second row, and 2 9 in the 6 9. Here it should be 6 9. So 6 9 in the last row. Likewise, you can remember all the elements. Okay, so in two-dimensional array, if there is a completely initialized with value, only the first dimension can be omitted. So if you are doing like this, if you're specifying all the elements, or if you are passing like sets, so if you are giving the fixed number in rows and you are not violating the columns, if you are giving the fixed number of rows like this, if you are doing, see here, 2 elements in each column when I am saying, 2 elements in each column when I am saying, sorry, not in each column, 2 elements in each row when I am saying, then how many columns we will get? 2 columns we will get. Okay, 2 elements in each row. So this will indicate 2 elements in each row. So that means 2 columns. So if you pass fixed values like this, 2 elements in each row, okay, so then you can omit the number of rows. So from where the compiler will get the number of rows, in the sense, from by reading this past elements, past values, whatever values you are assigning, whatever values you are passing, simply it will read, and it will make the it will make 2 elements in each column, sorry, in each row, so as to get the total number of columns. Okay, so how many elements we are supplying over here? Combination of 2 2, we are supplying 4 sets. Okay, 4 subsets, we can say. So each set for a row. So total how many rows? It will count the number of sets and it will give that count. Okay, the compiler will count the number of sets and it will give the count for a row. So over here we are having 1 2 3 4. So it will make that as 4. But the index, if you see, it will start from 0 1 2 3. maximum size minus 1. The maximum index will be maximum size minus 1. Like this it will assign the values for your two-dimensional array. Over here, when you are not giving the, when you are omitting the number of rows, it is counting the values. Okay, it is counting the values, and two values for each row it is assigning, because you have given the column count as 2. So two values for each row it is assigning. In that way, it is counting the number of rows and it is giving the row value. Hopefully you understood this one. So this, how we will get the initialization, how we will get the array over here means, in the first row we will get 2 3, second row 4 6, third row 3 7, and last row 5 0. Like this we will get. This will be like a box you will get the memory. Okay, so like this, like this, like this, and like this. Over here index, this is 0, this is 1, this is 0 1 2 3, like this. Hopefully you understood this one and you remember this one. So to initialize all elements to 0, what we have to do, simply take the array of whatever size you insist, like 5 rows and 4 columns I have taken, total 20 elements I have taken. So if you want all 20 elements to be initialized with 0, simply do like this. No need to pass 20 zeros over here, rather you can put only 1 0, and what will happen, all 20 elements in my array will be initialized to zeros. So this is another way of initializing all elements to zeros. Okay. So this is something about this two-dimensional array initialization. Inputting the values, you can even input the values using scanf, but when you are doing so, you need 2 dimensions. Okay, you need to do with 2 dimensions, one for rows and one for column. So this outer, suppose if your array is of size 2 by 2, okay, 2 rows and 2 columns. So outer for loop, we need to take nested for loop over here. The outer for loop will be used for rows and the inner for loop is used for columns. Okay, so the outer for loop, when you are taking, you need to be make sure that the condition which you are framing, it must go up to the maximum number of elements that you are taking, and here the symbol should be less than, don't take less than or equals to over here. Okay, and it should start, the initialization of the counter must start from 0, because the index will start from 0. Okay, so this is 0, and as we have only 2 rows in our array, I took like I must be less than 2. Then we need to take another counter j. For this is for columns, and how many columns we have? Only 2 columns, so the column count must start from 0 and ends at 2. Okay, so here the scores array, how it will be processed, in the first iteration I value 0 will come, and then condition will be checked, condition true, then j value 0 will come, condition will be checked, it is also true. So here scores of I j, that is 0 0. So the first element inside your array, using scanf you are reading. Okay, first element inside your array, using scanf you are reading, from the keyboard you are reading. So like this will be having 2 rows, 2 columns. So this is my 0 0, this is 0 1, this is 1 0, and this is 1 1. So initially I am reading the 0 0, then what will happen, only the inner loop will iterate because as long as the inner condition is true, only the inner loop will iterate. So when j value is 0, first iteration we got, then what will happen, j value gets incremented and j will become 1, then 1 is less than 2, again the condition is true, so the inner loop will iterate. So the second iteration for the inner loop, then what will happen, I value remains 0 but j value got incremented, j value becomes 1. So 0 1, this value we are reading, this value we already read, this value we are reading now. Then what will happen, again the after reading the second value, again the loop will iterate for the inner loop, then j value gets incremented, j value, what will happen, j value will become 2 now, then condition will be checked, 2 is less than 2 we are saying, so condition becomes false. Then the inner loop will exit, so the control will go to the outer loop, because still the outer loop condition was true. So still the outer loop is pending. So the control will come to the outer loop. Now outer loop, what will happen? I value gets incremented. Previously I value was 0, now I value becomes 1. So with I value 1, again the control will enter into the inner loop. So again, as the control is coming from outside, J value gets reinitialized. So J value becomes 0. So then what will happen? J 0 less than 2, condition true. Once again, we come over here and we read scores of 1, 0. Scores of 1, 0 in the sense the third element into my array that we are reading using scanf. Then what will happen? Again J value gets incremented because inner loop will iterate. Okay, J value becomes 1 now. Okay, again 1 is less than 2, condition true, so 1, 1, we are reading the last element. Okay, scores of I is J, scores of 1, 1, that is last element we are reading into the array. Then what will happen? Again the inner loop will continue and J value gets incremented. J value becomes 2 now. Okay, and then 2 less than 2, condition false. Then it will go to the outer loop. I value gets incremented. I value becomes 2. Okay, 2 less than 2, outer loop is also exiting. So the complete nested for loop will exit. So in this way, using scanf and nested for loops, we can read all the elements inside your two-dimensional array. So this is one of the important concept. How we can read the elements inside your two-dimensional array means we need to take the nested for loop. This example you have to remember. This example you have to remember, and this example you have to practice. Then the next one, outputting values. Same thing, by taking nested for loop, we can print the array on the output screen. But you have to make sure that whenever you are taking the nested for loop for outputting values, for printing the values on the output screen, you need to take this extra curly brackets. Okay, for inputting values, no need of curly brackets, but for outputting, this extra curly brackets and extra printf statement will come like this. These two and this thing you have to remember. When we do the practical stuff with two-dimensional arrays, there I will explain why we need this extra curly brackets and why we need this extra println statement. Okay. Next thing, accessing values. You can even do the individual initialization. Okay, you can even do the individual initialization to the a two-dimensional array that I have already said. Just pass the suitable index. So now what will happen when you do like this? Scores of 2, 0 when you are saying equals to 23. So whatever array size you are having, that they have not given over here, whatever array size you are having, in that second row 0th element, yani second index, and second index in the sense third row, isn't it? 2 plus 1 we have to do. Second index, when we are saying, it is 2 plus 1, so third row. And 0th column when we are saying, so 0 plus 1, that is first column. Third row, first column element will become 23. So because we don't know the number of rows and we don't know the number of columns, so we should not do like this. The number of rows we don't know and the number of columns we don't know. So like this I am taking. So this is a row continuation and this is a column continuation I am showing. So over here, this is 0th row, first row, second row. This is 0th column, first column. So what element will become this 23? So first, second row. So this is 0th, first, second. So this is second row and 0th column. So this is 0th column. So this particular element will become 23 like this. This particular element will become 23. Hopefully you understood. So assigning values, then we have to do a matrix program for these two-dimensional arrays. With that we conclude this two-dimensional arrays. It is a very simple concept and it is very important too. Okay, because matrix addition and matrix multiplication is dependent on these two-dimensional arrays. And I have shown you everything, how we can do the declaration, how we can do the definition, and how we can do the initialization of every individual element with using nested for loops, and by doing basic initialization, and by using the what we call by passing this set of elements that also I have shown. Okay, so the next thing, we have the concept of strings. This is another important concept. So A string is nothing but it is a series of characters treated as a single unit. It is a series of characters. When I'm saying series of characters, it is a linear or the sequence of characters we have to say. So, so when I'm writing some words in your English language, all the words can be treated like strings because when you're framing words, suppose if I'm saying apple, okay, when I'm pronouncing apple, so if I dictate this term, this word apple, then what will happen? I need to spell all the words, isn't it? So what is that? A P P L E. So it is a sequence. I need to write all those characters: a character, p character, p character, l character, e character. I need to write all those letters in sequence to frame that word apple. So suppose like this: a p P L E. So I need to write all these letters together so to form that word apple. So this apple, we call it like a string. String is nothing but sequence of characters, a collection of characters, series of characters. So over here they are calling it as string. Why they are calling this particular thing as a string? Is there any reason why they have given the particular name string in the sense? Because in reality, when you see the meaning of this word string in English dictionary, string is nothing but it is a wire kind of thing, an iron wire, a small iron wire. Likewise, we got, okay. So the meaning of this term string is it is like a wire kind of thing which is used to tie something, or which is used to put all the all the entities together, isn't it? So then why they have selected this string term over here means in the olden days, I mean, before this modern computers or modern printing press started, they used to print, or they used to do the copying of the stuff using the very old printing press. Okay, very old printing press. In that, no automatic concept, everything we have to do manually. Suppose if you have to because printing press in the sense, generally we need to print the words over there, English letters, English words over there. So to frame the words, what they used to do means they used to put all the characters together. So whatever characters are framing that word, they used to put all those characters together, and they used to tie those characters using an aluminium or using an iron string. So they used to call it as a string only. Okay, because they are tying all those characters. Suppose in order to frame apple, how many characters they need? They need 5 characters. They used to put all 5 characters together like this: A P P L E. Because to hold these characters together, they don't have any mechanism. So what they used to do means they used to tie all these characters with an aluminium string like this, so that they put these characters together. Okay, like this they used to tie. Okay, like this they used to tie all these characters. So because they are using string, an iron string, in order to hold these characters together, they used to call this entire thing as a string only. Okay, apple, a string only. So from there we got this term string. Okay, from that usage we got this term string. So whenever we are keeping all the characters together, we are calling it as a string. So in programming languages, in any programming language you go, whether you're C, C++, Java, Python, or whatever programming language you go, whatever um, um, computer application, computer related stuff, computer software you use, if you're seeing the term string there, you have to understand the string like a collection of characters, sequence of characters. Okay, so string is a variable length piece of data. So over here in computers, especially in C language, when we are dealing with strings, okay, of course here we are not dealing with the iron string to hold the characters together, isn't it? There must be a separation between the strings, isn't it? There must be a separation between the words, like on a paper when you are writing. Suppose on a paper when you are writing, so what you are giving a separation we are giving the spaces in between the strings, isn't it? Characters treated, these two are strings, isn't it? This is one string and this is another string. How we are separating these two strings? By using a space over here, by using a space in between. Okay, so here in C language there also a problem how we are going to separate the strings one from another. Okay, to do that thing we have two concepts. Okay, we have two things using which the strings can be separated, or using which the strings can be what we call categorized. The string length can be known, because if you know the length of the string, that means you are separating the string, isn't it? So string is a variable length piece of data. Strings are divided into two major categories. So the first one is the fixed length strings, where the size of the string is known in advance, and the other one is variable length string, where the size of the string is completely unknown. Okay, so fixed length and variable length strings, two forms of strings or two categories of strings we have in C language. Okay, fixed length strings and variable length strings. So the fixed length strings, where the size of the string will be known in advance, and variable length strings, the size of the string is not known in advance. So fixed length strings, um, yeah, in order to understand this string, uh, because the computer's memory we need to understand. The computer's memory, it is a variable entity. A computer's memory, it will which will be allocated to your program, it will grow and it will expand, it will shrink. Okay, many things you can do with the computer's memory. But when you are allocating the memory for a string, and you are maintaining all the sequence of characters in that string, you must specify where the string is ending, where exactly you are stopping the string, because we are saying string is nothing but sequence of characters. Your compiler, your computer will consider the entire memory like sequence of characters only. If there is no separation between the strings, then what will happen? It will simply read. Whenever you start the reading process for a string, it will simply read the entire computer memory, isn't it? That we don't want. We want the string to be read, and at some point after reading the string, the computer should stop the reading process. So that stopping, I mean, where exactly you are ending the string, how you are going to indicate means with the help of these mechanisms, fixed length and variable length strings. Okay, so variable length strings, yeah, in fixed length strings there is a problem. If you make the size of the string too small, because in fixed length strings what we have to do, we have to tell the size in advance. When you are saying fixed length strings, you have to tell the size of the string in advance. If you tell the size in advance, there are issues, there are problems that we will discuss over here. So suppose if I make the string size as only 3, because I need to mention the size in advance, so I'm mentioning the size in advance. I'm making the size like only 3. So that means what will happen? It can hold only 3 characters. This particular string, of which you have fixed the size as 3, can hold only 3 characters. So what is the problem with that one? You can store only 3 characters, only small names or small words you can store. But if you want to store, I mean, a big word into that one, is it possible? No. Suppose if I want to store a word of 10 letters, can I store into that string? Not possible. It is a problem in that one. Okay, because the fixed size, because in fixed size strings, the size is becoming fixed. Okay, the size is becoming fixed, you can store only 3 characters. Like I can store eat, eat I can store. But suppose if I want to store umbrella, can I store over here? Not possible, because it is having more number of letters that I can't store into this one. Okay, that is the problem. So okay, no issues. Why to maintain the, I mean, you may get the doubt that why to maintain the size as small, just maintain the size as big, like take 1000 characters into your string. It is also possible. But again there is an issue. Even if you take the size very big, again there is an issue. What is the issue? So if you're taking the size too big and you're storing only less number of characters. Like I want to store eat only into this 1000 1000 letter string. Okay, 1000 memory location string I want to store eat. So now how many characters it will consume from this 1000 characters? Only 3 characters it will consume, and rest of all 997 characters we are wasting. 997 memory locations we are wasting. We are fixing, but we are not using. So again, it is also an issue. Making the size too small, we cannot store big size strings. Making the size too big, and when you are storing the small size strings, what is happening? We are wasting the memory. So in two ways, fixed length strings are not the perfect solution. Fixed length strings are not the perfect answer for our strings issue. So what we have to do, we have to go for variable length strings. What is a variable length string? In the sense, a variable length string is a string which can shrink and which can expand according to our requirement. Okay, which can shrink and which can expand according to our requirement. If you want to store the small size string, then what will happen? The string will shrink automatically, so that it will take exact number of characters to hold your string. If the string size is big, the string should expand automatically. Okay, so a much preferred solution is to create a structure that can expand and contract according to the size of the value we want to store. Okay, uh, yes, it will shrink and it will expand. I mean, the variable length string, it can shrink and it can contract, it can expand and it can contract automatically. We don't have to do anything over here. Okay, so yeah, if even if you do in that way, again there is a problem. Okay, as we are using a variable length structure in computer's memory, there must be a way to indicate the end of the string. So variable length string we are maintaining, the string is expanding automatically and the string is shrinking automatically, but where exactly the end point of the string? Again there is a problem. We need to specify the end point. Okay, end point. To specify the end point, we have two ways. The first one is the length controlled strings and the delimited strings. Okay, these two are variable length. The length controlled strings, what we do means, after storing the, here we are not specifying the size in advance. You remember this one. We are not specifying the size in advance. Rather, what we are doing means, at the time of storing the string, when you are storing the string, what you do means, after storing the string, you will count the number of characters, how many characters you have. Suppose if I am storing, let us say, an word with name, like uh, any simple example I am storing. Example. Okay, this particular string I want to store into computer memory. Then what I have to do in length control strings, in the sense, in order, how many characters we have into this string? We have like 6 characters, isn't it? In our string we have 6 characters. 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7. Sorry, 7 characters we have inside this string example. We have 7 characters. To store these 7 characters, we need 7 memory locations, isn't it? So it will assign 7 memory locations to store this word, to store this string. 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6, another 1 7. Like this it will allocate. So then E will be stored here. X A M P L E. Like this it will store the complete word, complete string. Then what we have to do, count the number of characters, that is 7. So one extra memory location at the beginning of the string we take, and we store that 7 count over here. So the first memory location, whatever string you are storing, the first memory location will have the size of the string, so that the computer will come to know that it has to read only 7 characters. By seeing that count, by seeing the length controlled string, by seeing that length, by seeing that first memory location, in that when we are storing the length, what the computer will understand means it will understand that it has to read only 7 characters into the string. So what it will do, it will simply start from the beginning and it will read those 7 characters, and after reading the 7 character it will stop the reading process, because that's what we want. That's what we want. We need the end point, and this is how we are achieving the end. By storing the total number of characters into the first memory location, we are giving the end point. Of course, we are storing that count in the first memory location. Why means before reading the string only, the compiler has to know the size of the string, length of the string. Because of that reason, we are storing the length and the beginning of the string. So just the compiler read the first memory location by seeing the count 7, he will understand that he has to read only 7 characters. He will read 7 characters and it will stop reading process. In that way the things will go. This is an what we call a problem free approach, an efficient approach we can say inside the computer memory. Okay, but in C we are not following this approach in C. This is one approach that we have to know, and there is another approach, the delimited strings. Okay, the delimited strings, in that a delimiter will be used, a special character known as delimiter will be used to indicate the end of the string or to terminate the string, we can say. Okay, so over there what we do means, whenever you are storing the same string, instead of counting the because it is again a tedious job, isn't it, counting the number of characters and keeping one extra memory locations to store the number of characters. Of course it is an efficient way, but it is also having some it is taking the processor, isn't it, it is taking some of the intelligence of the processor, because the processor has to count the number of characters and it has to store the count in the first memory location. So because of that reason, what we are doing means we are going in a dumb way. Instead of counting the characters and instead of keeping the count in the first memory location, because it is requiring, it is taking some intelligence. So whenever we need to put the intelligence of the computer, we have to avoid it as much as possible, because that intelligence we can use for some other purpose, isn't it? So because of this reason, we are going for another simplest approach, a dumb approach we can say. So there what we do means, suppose if you want to store example example, same 7 character string into the computer memory. So over there what we do means, we assign the memory locations. Okay, we assign memory locations. How many memory locations we need? 7 memory locations to store this complete string. 1 2 3 4 5 6, and one more memory location, 7th memory location, to store the last character. So E X A M P L E, like this we are storing all the characters. Example. So now we are not using any computer's intelligence to count the characters and to store the count, to store the length in the first memory location. Rather what we are doing means, after storing the entire string, we are taking a special character known as delimiter. We are taking a special character known as delimiter. So that delimiter in C is /0, /0. This special character, we also call this character as a null character. Null character. Okay, null character. That null character we store over here, \0. That null character we store as the last character. So this is not requiring any intelligence of the computer. Simply it is going and it is storing that character as the last characters. So what happens when the next time the computer starts reading this string, it will start from this location. It will, we will maintain this memory locations reference as a string identifier, as a string indication. We maintain this memory locations reference. Starting is not a problem, because we are going to have this memory locations reference, this memory locations address into our hand. Where comes the problem means, where exactly we need to end, there comes the problem. Okay, so how the computer from this location it will start reading, it will read the first location, second location, third location, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. After reading the 7th memory location, it will go for the last memory location, that is 8th memory location, and it is finding the special character null character. So that null character, as it is a delimiter, as it is a terminator of the string, as it is the end point of the string, it will consider it as the end point and it will stop the reading process. So in that way, in a dumb approach, we are maintaining the strings in our C language. So you have to understand the string. I mean, so far whatever we discussed, that I'm summarizing. So you have to understand the string like a sequence of characters, series of characters, collection of characters. It is not just a single character, rather it is a collection of characters. Okay. So when you are maintaining strings in computer's memory, there are some problems. The first problem is to know where exactly, how much is the string's length and where exactly we need to stop the string. Okay, because starting, because as we are maintaining the reference, starting is not an issue but ending is an issue. So because of that reason, we went for two approaches. One is the fixed length strings and the other one is the variable length strings. The fixed length strings, the problem is, the if you make the strings too small, you cannot store the big names, and if you make the string too big and if you're storing only small names, you're wasting the memory over there. So fixed length strings, not a solution. Simply we are ignoring that one. We are going for variable length strings. Again, variable length strings, what is the advantage? The string can expand, can contract according to our requirement. So the issue of fixed length strings we overcome. But here also again there is an issue. When the string is expanding and contracting automatically and there is no fixed size of the string, then the end point is an issue. Where exactly we need to end the string? The end point is an issue. To maintain that end point, we have two solutions. One is the length controlled strings and the delimited strings. Length controlled strings, we said we are simply, okay, whenever we are storing a particular string, we are counting the characters and we are storing the number of characters as the first character. Count all the characters and put the count in the first memory location. Okay, so here when you are maintaining the length controlled strings, we said the computer's intelligence is required in order to count the characters and keeping the count in the first location. Computer's intelligence it is requiring. So because of that reason, we said that is also not the best approach. So we are going for another approach, that is delimited strings approach. So what are delimited strings? Instead of counting the characters and keeping the count in the first memory location, what we are doing, simply we are not counting the characters, we are not doing any, we are not utilizing any computer's intelligence. Rather what we are doing, we are simply storing all the string, and after storing the complete string, the last character, we are maintaining the delimiter, the null character in C language. So delimited string is the perfect, okay, 100% foolproof approach we are saying to maintain the strings in our C language. Because of that reason, we are using that approach only. All our strings, all our C strings are the delimited strings only. So if you go to the next slide, the length controlled approach I have explained over here, the delimited approach I have explained over here. So here the length controlled strings I have shown over there. It is simply counting the number of characters into your string, and it is maintaining that count as the first memory location in your length controlled strings. Here you can see that one. So here when it is storing this Google, how many characters it is having? 6 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is maintaining the count like 6 over here. Okay, here it is requiring the computer's intelligence. Because of that reason, we're not going with this approach as well. This approach also not the perfect approach we are saying. Okay, then we are going for this delimited strings. Over here, as you can see, they'll maintain the delimiter as the last character, the null character. We call it as an null character. Okay, null character. Here you can read it. Null character. Delimiter, as delimiter is a null character. This character. Okay, so Google, when you are storing, after storing the complete word, after storing the complete string, we are storing the delimiter, null character. Okay, and we said our C strings are also the delimited ones. Beginning of the string is not an issue because we are maintaining the reference of the beginning point or the reference of the starting memory location inside the string reference. So beginning is not an issue, but ending is an issue, and that ending we are achieving with the help of delimiter or the null character. Okay, yes, to store the strings in C language, we use arrays. Okay, we use arrays, we use character arrays because we are using all characters inside the string, so we use a character array. And the last character will be the null character, and the what we call and the name of the array, because when you are taking the character array, that you will get a name for that array. So the name of the array will be the starting point and the delimiter will be the ending point. Okay, so string constants. So to maintain the strings in C language, we have to use the double quotations. To maintain the characters, we used single quotations, but to maintain the strings, we use double quotations. Okay, so declaring the strings, defining the strings, initializing the strings, string input output functions, and string manipulation functions. These things we will do in our. Let me just check the time. Yes, it is almost 1 hour, so these things we will do in our next class. Okay, in one more session, as I promised, I will wind up the complete stuff. So here in this class we discussed about two-dimensional arrays as well as the strings basics. Okay, basics of strings we have completed. So directly in my next class I will go with some concepts in string constants, and then how we can make the string name as a reference, that also we will discuss. The string itself as a reference, that also we will discuss. Then declaring and defining the strings, then initializing and string input output functions. These two are important functions that we need to discuss. Puts and gets functions. Then assigning one string to another, is it possible, that we will see. This is also a 2 marks question. Then string manipulation functions, it is a 7 marks question. So this time for your internal exams, I'm not considering this string manipulation functions because of so many reasons. But it is every time I used to give this question as an LAQ, long answer question. We have only very few LAQs, and this time I'm going in a lenient way, I can say, because we have not at all interacted. Physically, we have not at all interacted, and we have not done any practical stuff. Because of those reasons, I'm going in a lenient way. But don't expect the same if the classes will start from 1st July onwards. Don't expect the same for your second mid exams. Definitely, we have to increase the intensity, because ultimately, even if we go in a lenient way for your internals, ultimately you have to face the external physically, and at that time, if you don't know the concepts, you will face a lot of problems. There is a possibility that you will fail in this subject. But immediately when we start the classes physically, I'm planning many assessment classes, and in those assessment classes what we will do means, instead of going with the regular theory classes, we can complete much of the syllabus in online mode. I'm planning to continue the online classes as well. Much of the syllabus we will try to complete in online mode. So we will go with the question papers. I will send you the question papers. So in my opinion, the best way to clear any exam is just to follow the previous year university or previous year question papers, how they framed the questions, what answer we have to write for every question. In that way, for this particular syllabus PPS, my approach is that one only. Okay, apart from regular theory classes, we need to have the assessment classes, and in those assessment classes we'll do the question paper solving, previous year university question paper solving. We will take small questions, and whenever I mean 2 to 3 SAQs we need to practice, and at least one LAQ in each assessment class we need to practice. So with that, we'll be in a position to know how to clear the university question paper. And because of this pandemic and all, we are getting always the delays. Okay, because still now you have not written any of your first semester exams, and we have completed half of the semester, second semester. And all our concepts, all your concepts, whatever we taught you in your first semester, they might be gone, blurred in your memory, isn't it? Again, you need to refresh all those things, and you have to be ready for your external exams. And at the same time, when you complete your external exams, you will be near to your second semester ending. So we need to do so many things in your second semester, and we need to prepare for your second semester externals as well. Okay, if things will go smoothly, if nothing will come in our what we call proceeding, definitely we will process a very good approach. We will execute a very good approach in order to prepare for your PPS external exams, hopefully. Okay, till then, thank you very much, students, and inshallah I will put my next lecture on Monday. So on Monday we will be having a doubt clarification session in the afternoon, and I'm expecting the active participation, because every time whenever I am conducting this doubt clarification session, hardly 5 to 6 students they are coming, they're turning up, and rest of them I don't know what they are doing. So that is not the right way. So because this doubt clarification session on Monday, it will be the last, I have to say, before you are writing the first mid exams, that will be the last doubt clarification session. So I'm expecting your active participation, hopefully. Thank you very much, students.